Hey guys, welcome back. Thank you for all the views we got on our last gameplay. It was amazing to see the view count jump, and I'm excited to be able to show you guys another gameplay. Alright, block there, kill that. Oh, that is trample. Guess I'm just dead on board. Today, we are featuring a semi-competitive match. First up is Jimmy, showing off his Cycle Zur list. He uses Zur's ability to fetch out key enchantments such as Astral Slide to gain value or disrupt his opponents from cycling cards. Next, we have Fernando piloting his competitive Rogues deck. As before, he relies on powerful CEDH cards and tribal synergies to outvalue his opponents. Third up is Rick piloting his Xenagos board wipes deck. This utilizes damage-based board wipes to clear away his opponent's creatures while leaving his massive creatures alive and attacking. And lastly is Jordan, who is piloting a new deck to the channel, Varina Lich Queen. And it looks like today we'll have competing tribes, as this is Jordan's zombie tribal deck that uses Zarina's ability to quickly filter through his deck and fill his yard with great zombies to reanimate. But without further ado, let's get to the gameplay. Jimmy starts the game off by playing an Urborg into a Thieves Guild Enforcer, milling each opponent for 2. Fernando draws and plays a Marsh Flats, cracking it to go to 39 and plays an Underground Sea, but shortcuts by dropping a turn 1 Fish. Before searching and passes to Rick. Rick draws and plays a tapped Temple of Abandon, scrying 1 to the bottom and passing after that. Jordan draws and follows Rick's example by playing a tapped Temple of Deceit.
Oh, nice play, nice play.
What are you guys doing?
Scrying to the top and passing. Jimmy draws and plays a Sea of Clouds and taps out to cast a Wall of Omens, drawing a card and not feeding the fish, passing after that. Fernando untaps and lets the fish go.
True. Got him.
He plays a Polluted Delta for land, tapping it for black because of Orberg, and casting an Una's Blackguard, passing after that. Rick draws and plays a mountain, and taps out to cast a Rampant Growth, searching for and putting a mountain into play tapped, passing after that. Jordan draws and plays a Marsh Flats, and goes to crack it when Jimmy reminds him there's an Orberg so that he can use the mana if he wanted instead of searching. Jordan likes the idea and passes after that. Jimmy draws and boasts a spicy turn 3 synergy.
Because this is going to be epic.
He taps both lands, floating 2, and using 1 mana to cast an Amulet of Vigor, and plays a Lotus Field as land for turn, sacking both tapped lands, but triggering the Amulet to untap Lotus Field.
Oh my god, what a cool play.
With 1 floating and tapping the field for 3 black, he casts a Fluctuator, floating 2 mana and cycling an Angel Song for free, drawing a card. He then cycles an Unearth for free, drawing another card. He then casts Shadow of the Grave with the remaining mana, returning all the cards that were either cycled or discarded this turn back to his hand. He moves to combat and swings the Enforcer at Rick for 1, dropping to 39, and passes after that. Fernando draws and plays a Tainted Isle and taps for 2, casting a Demonic Tutor, and graciously not searching for his combo for a turn 3 win. But instead, he casts a Mana Crypt, and then moves to combat, attacking Jordan for 1 in the air, bringing him to 39 and passes after that. Rick draws and plays a Forest. He taps a red to cycle a Forgotten Cave, drawing a card, and passes after that. Jordan draws and plays a Reflecting Pool. Then we realize that Urborg was sacked to the Lotus Field, and Fernando taps his mana accordingly, cracking his delta, going to 38 to adjust for Urborg not being on the battlefield. We don't believe this had a major effect on the game, and Jordan passes after that. Jimmy draws and plays a Fetid Heath, attacking Fernando for 1, dropping him to 37 and passes after that. Fernando loses his Crypt trigger on his upkeep, dropping to 34. He draws and likes the card he sees, then moves to combat and attacks Jimmy for 1 in the air. At this point, Jimmy responds by tapping 4 mana to make a point clear to Fernando that he can't bully anyone, and fogs his combat step with an Angel Song, preventing the damage. And at end step, he cycles an Unearth for free from Fluctuator. But when he goes to draw, Fernando responds by flashing in his own copy of Thieves Guild Enforcer. And on ETB, it triggers the Blackguard and the Enforcer. He stacks the triggers by having his opponent's mill 2, and then adds a +1/+1 counter to the Enforcer. Then, with the stack partially clear, He responds to the cycle of the Unearth by flashing in a Notion Thief, trying to steal Jimmy's draw. This also triggers the Blackguard and the Enforcer, adding a +1/+1 counter to Notion Thief and milling his opponents for 2 more. There are no responses to Notion Thief, and Fernando steals Jimmy's draw. Jordan now has more than 8 cards in his graveyard, so both Enforcers get +2/+1 in Death Touch, and Fernando passes after that. Rick draws and plays an active Temple of the False God and taps 5 to cast an Hour of Devastation to wipe the board. It resolves and all creatures die. Jordan draws and plays his own Orborg and taps out to cast a God Eternal Kefnet, passing after that. Jimmy draws and plays a Plains off the top and taps out for a Bomb Archfiend of Ifnir and tries to do an impersonation of an MTGA cast animation while passing after that. On Fernando's upkeep, he loses the Crypt trigger and drops to 31. He draws and then taps Crypt for Demir's Signet and then taps out to cast Anowon and passes after that. Rick draws and plays a Mountain. He casts Xenagos and passes. Jordan draws and counts his mana. He plays a Watery Grave untapped, taking 2, dropping to 37, and taps 4 for Varina. He then moves to combat with Kefnet, triggering Varina to gain 1, discard 1, and draw 1, while Jimmy takes 4 in the air, not wanting to trade his Archfiend. Jimmy drops to 36, and then Jordan passes after that. Jimmy draws and plays a Plains as land and taps out to cast a New Perspectives. On ETB, he draws 3 cards and moves to combat, attacking Jordan for 5 in the air, bringing him to 33, passing after that. Fernando loses his Crypt trigger again, dropping to 28, and plays a land for turn. He moves to combat, swinging Anowon at Rick. Rick takes the damage, milling 2, one of which is a Colonian Hydra, and Fernando draws off Anowon's trigger. Rick drops to 35, and then Fernando passes his turn with Rift mana up. Not fishy at all.
Suspicious. That's
I'm gonna draw a
6
card.
mana. 7 mana? I smell Cyclonic Rift.
Rick draws and plays a Forest, and asks Fernando how many cards he has.
He has 6 cards in hand. Oh gosh.
No,
He's
no,
got
no.
all
I
this-
have, I have 5 cards. 6 of them are Cyclonic Rift.
And Jordan calls for limit testing, as we convince Rick to unleash the Fury. He taps 5 to cast the Quartz Wood Crasher. Rick goes to combat, but before Xenagos can trigger, Fernando casts a new clutch sleeper card called Leadership Vacuum to have Rick return his commander to the command zone, and Fernando draws a card. Fernando was worried that Rick would attack him anyways, but now he's angered the Xenagod, and Rick wants revenge.
Well, you will rue the day. You will rue it.
Rick, dismayed, passes turn to Jordan. Jordan draws and plays an island and moves to combat. He attacks Fernando with Varina and Jimmy with Kefnet. Fernando goes to 24 and Jimmy goes to 32. But before that, Jordan draws 2, gains 2, and discards 2, those being Lord of the Undead and Plague Belcher. He then taps 5 for a Scarab God and passes turn. Jimmy draws, hitting another land drop off the top. He taps 1 for a Mana Vault and another for a Sensei's Divining Top. He then taps the Vault and an island for a Drake Haven, floating 1. He uses the 1 to spin the top and rearrange the top 3. He activates top to draw and put it on top, and then cycles a Drifting Meadow for free. That triggers Drake Haven, and he pays the 1 to make a 2/2 Drake. He then draws the top from the cycle. He also remembers to trigger the Ifnir, putting a -1/-1 counter on each opponent's creatures. With the 3 mana remaining, he recasts the top and a Dust Mantle Guildmage, passing after that. Fernando loses his Crypt trigger again, dropping to 21, and plays a Morphic Pool for land, and asks for all the cards in graveyards. The table guesses he has a Mnemonic Betrayal, and he then casts it, gaining access to the graveyards. He casts Jimmy's Unearth to bring back his Una's Blackguard. He casts a Thieves Guild Enforcer and triggers the Blackguard, giving it a +1/+1 counter. Jimmy responds to the ETB of milling by drawing a card with his top and cycling a Resend, which triggers the Archfiend to give all of his opponent's creatures a -1/-1 counter, killing the Blackguard. He then draws the top from the cycle, with Fernando using the remaining mana he has to cast a Rampant Growth from Rick to find a basic swamp. He then uses the last of his mana to cast Rick's Adventurous Impulse, but fails to find. At his end step, his opponent's cards return to their respective graveyard and he passes turn. Rick draws and plays a Spire Garden as land and really dislikes the Archfiend.
Archfiend of If Sucky Fucky.
He then taps 7 for his Xenagos and moves to combat, triggering Xenagos to make the Quartzwood Crasher an 8/8. He swings it at Jimmy, who doesn't block. But before combat damage, Rick casts in Unleash the Fury to make it a 16/16. Upon connecting, he makes a 16/16 token with Trample, and Jordan drops to 19 passing. Jordan draws, and on his upkeep, the Scarab God triggers, having each of his opponents lose 2, and he scries to the bottom. He then taps 4 for an Alhamrit's Archive. He moves to combat, swinging Kefnet at Rick and Varina at Fernando. But before damage, the attacking zombies trigger Varina's ability, gaining 2, drawing 2, and discarding 2. But with the Archive out, he actually gains 4, draws 4, but only has to discard 2 cards. Fernando blocks with Jimmy's Enforcer and trades with Varina because of Death Touch. Jordan then plays the Sunken Ruins as his land and passes after that. Jimmy loses a life to a tap mana vault and draws return. He then recasts the top and spins it. He likes what he sees and activates top to draw, and then goes to cast a Windfall. With the Windfall on the stack, and with all the pleading, Jordan then casts an Anguish Unmaking, targeting Jimmy's new perspectives. Because politics is legal in Commander, Fernando admits that he could counter the Windfall and go for the Consultation win with Oracle on his next turn, but he doesn't want to do the table dirty like that, so he gives Rick the option to counter the Windfall or the Anguish Unmaking. Jimmy pleads with the table because this is his only gas in his hand. But Fernando wants second place and asks if Rick can go off on his turn and kill the board with Trampled Dinos. Jimmy is super sad. Not only is his Windfall countered, but the new perspectives is exiled, leaving him dead in the water. In retaliation, he attacks Rick in the air for 7, bringing him to 23, and the Guild Mage spitefully swings at Fernando for 2, which he blocks, trading with his commander because of the 2 -1/-1 counter on it. He then passes turn. Fernando, losing all of the crypt triggers, takes another 3, dropping to 16 and drawing for turn. He plays an island and recasts his commander for 6. He casts a Value Oracle, looking at the top 3, putting 1 on top and the rest on the bottom, and passes turn. Rick draws and moves to combat, triggering Xenagos, and puts the trigger on his 16/16 token with Trample. With its power being doubled, he attacks at Jimmy, and the original Crasher at Jordan. Jimmy knows he is dead on board, but Fernando says, "Hold on, Jimmy."
I'll swing the big boy at Jimmy and 4 at Jordan. This is just a 4/4 Jordan. It's not an 8/8.
Hold on, Jimmy.
Don't worry, Jimmy.
Hold on, Jimmy. You haven't received damage yet.
Fernando has a super play. Don't worry.
Jimmy, come back to
I'll
life, please.
Yeah, I'll take 4.
Alright.
Will you give me second place?
Will Jimmy give you second place?
I'm gonna win this. Fuck you all.
Jimmy will give you second place. Yes, he will.
Well, you were gonna give me second place, right, Rick?
I was gonna give you second place. Yes.
Then I will take your second place. Sure.
You know what? Fuck you guys. I'm letting Jordan live and win it.
You're dead.
Jordan, I'm helping you.
Sure, Rick gets a 32 trample.
Oh, my beating heart.
But because Jimmy had told Fernando that he was going to help Jordan win, Fernando is fine with him taking 32 to the face. Rick respawns before the damage is dealt and casts a Savage Beating in Twine for 7 mana, which gives all of his creatures double strike and an additional combat phase. Jimmy demonstrated the guys. So what was I saying before?
Guys, what I was saying before.
Everyone admits defeat after seeing Rick's board of huge dino tokens. And yes, Fernando did actually get second place. Good game. This game was more casual, and there were just for fun plays. This brings back the realization that this game isn't always about winning or optimizing its plays. It's about having fun with your friends, and maybe playing with the fun cards, not the win easy cards. Early Jimmy had a great start, but ran out of draw power towards the mid to late game. There was an almost deciding moment at the end, but politics went poorly on the windfall. Fernando had a great mid-game momentum swing with the Notion Thief play, and if it wasn't for Rick's board wipe that turn, the game would have been in Fernando's favor. Jordan had an option to exile Xenagos with the Unmaking, but decided the New Perspectives was the greater threat, although Jimmy could have potentially drawn into something to deal with Rick. Rick was the MVP this game, being patient and dealing with the blue players. He waited for the right moments to get Xenagos out and had a key creature that pairs insanely well with him. He had a timely board wipe that reset the board and bought him more time to dig out for a finisher. Xenagos is a scary commander if left unchecked. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this gameplay. If you did, please leave a like and consider subscribing as it really helps us keep making videos. And remember, never give up, even if you're dead on board. I'll see you guys later.